welcome back to the Racing UK studio. We heard from James about the sectional timings for the 2,000 Guineas, and I'm sure he's got plenty more to say, which will be said on the 1,000, which we're about to see now. The win of Homecoming Queen in the delayed 1,000 Guineas yesterday. Well, the first thing to point out here, James, I'm sure you're going to flesh this out for us, a much more strongly run race and a good couple of seconds quicker than the 2,000.
Absolutely, completely polar opposite of the Colts equivalent here, and a stunning performance by Homecoming Queen, who dominated things from the off. And this was the strongest run race of the entire weekend, not just in terms of the raw speed that she was going, but in terms of the relativity of the first part of the race to the second part of the race. Now, I mentioned earlier on in the programme, if you just give us a second, I mentioned Simon Rowland's column on Betting Up Betfair. And if you find that blog of Simon's, you'll see that what the technique he uses is the same they do in Australia. What he does is he takes the time for the last 3 furlongs of the race, calculates that, turns that into a speed, which you can easily do, and then compares that with the speed of the race as a whole. And if the speed of the last 3 furlongs is the same as the speed of the race, you can express that as being 100%. And that is sign of a truly run race, a race where they're running as fast at the end that they were at the beginning. Now, in this race, the average speed of Homecoming Queen that we're going to see over the first 3 furlongs was 35.84 miles an hour, including a standing start. And the last 3 furlongs was just 34.85 miles an hour. So she slowed down considerably despite widening. Now, we've already mentioned on the show the Kentucky Derby. And now, Mike Smith had a similar task on his hands in the Kentucky Derby over a surface he knew really well to that Ryan Moore had. Much more complicated scenario for Ryan Moore. He doesn't quite know how good his horse is. He doesn't quite know how soft the ground is. He's on an undulating track. But this showed to me that Ryan Moore is a better judge of pace than Mike Smith on every day of the week and twice on a Sunday, as it was here, because he got the fractions here almost perfect to win the race, to suit his filly. Now, she's out of Lagrion, who's the broodmare that produced Dylan Thomas, and she must be very old now if she's not deceased. And her runners seem, for whatever reason, to be very tough. And so this was the perfect vehicle to ride a race like this, where you really made horses who are perhaps in dubious condition at this time of year pay. But to execute that, look at those first 3 furlongs and compare those, as you've already said, with the Colts Classic. 11.52, 11.57, a much stronger gallop from her than we saw in the male equivalent. And that was the platform for a much better time performance in the end.
Well, we can just roll it on again now. We've had the first 3 furlongs, and interesting to see how the race pans out in terms of the times from here, and whether there's anything from behind that deserves marking up.
Yes. Now, remember 12 months ago in the 2,000 Guineas, we had a similar visual performance, not quite as dramatic as Frankel's win this was from this filly, but it presented a similar conundrum to the riders in the Colts Classic. If you're on a horse and by halfway you suddenly feel that this 25-to-1 shot is getting away from you, what do you do? Well, I mentioned earlier that riders are more interested in position than pace, where they are relative to the leaders, and for good reason. You don't want to be the guy who gives your horse too much to do. Now, if you study the middle part of this race, we've had 4 ballistic furlongs. It's reasonable for a rider in the pack to think, well, Homecoming Queen's a 25-to-1 poke. She scrambled home in a listed race last time out. She can't be very good. She'll come back to us. But as it slowly dawns on the riders behind that she's not coming back, they face the conundrum. They can't just sit there, even if they feel that on their lesser talented horses, even pace is about staying in the pack now. So what do? They have to go out and chase her. And one of the reasons that you see wide margin winners on soft ground is that jockeys in the pack have to prematurely push their horses outside their own comfort zones to go in pursuit of a superlative winner. And if you looked at the sectionals of the horses in the pack here, you'll see that they slowed down dramatically, most of them, towards the end. because they had to be ridden to catch the winner. And if you remember in that 2,000 guineas 12 months ago, the horse that finished second, I think it was, Dubarwi Gold, was ridden like a non-trier in effect. I'm not saying he was a non-trier, but Richard Hughes rode him for a place sort of thing. And in so doing, he ran his race more efficiently than, I want to call him Rodrigo de Triano, help me out. Roderick O'Connor, who was ridden more aggressively and came back to win the Irish 2,000 guineas. The story of this race is simple, of one superlative winner who was ridden aggressively and with good judgment by Ryan Moore. But one of the reasons that the performance like this begets wide margin wins is because you, in effect, force the opposition out of their own comfort zone and force them to run even less efficiently than you. And so as it appears that Homecoming Queen is clearing away, look at the sectionals, the Racing UK sectionals top left. She's slowing down herself. She was slowing down far less than you might have expected her to do, given how fast she'd run early on. And that was a testament to her own brilliant and very surprising ability, and also the judgment of jockey Ryan Moore, who's just about the best in the business, in my view. OK, well, it's as much of an education for me as I'm sure it is for some of you, and no doubt we'll hear more of the sectional timings in due course.